Sunday laws of Teach United States and leading judicial decisions having special reference to Teach Juice. B.Y. Albert M. Friedenberg of the New York Bar. This summary is devoted to an examination of the Sunday laws now, 1908, in force in the United States, and of the leading reported decisions in which the courts of justice have sought to construe these statutes. Sunday laws. The Sunday laws in effect in the states of the United States were collected for the Massachusetts Lahore Bulletin in 1905. They are here reproduced, the material having been brought down to date, 1908. Alabama. Any person who compels his child, apprentice, or servant to perform any labor on Sunday, except the customary domestic duties of daily necessity, or works of charity, etc., and any merchant or shopkeeper except a druggist, who keeps open store on Sunday, is subject to a fine and imprisonment. These provisions do not apply to the running of railroads, stages or steamboats, or other vessels navigating the waters of this state, or any manufacturing establishment, which requires to be kept in constant operation. Chap. 175 Sec. 5542 Code of 1877. All the Sunday statutes of the different states, of Canada and of European countries are collected in Lahore Bulletin of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, No. 36, June, 1905, reprinted in Report on Observance of the Lord's Day, Boston, 1907, p. 41 et sec. The reader is also referred to papers and notes by the present writer in publications of the American Jewish Historical Society, NOS. 11, 12, and 13. Sunday laws and the judicial decisions. Arkansas. Every person who shall on the Sabbath or Sunday be found laboring, or shall compel his apprentice or servant to labor or to perform other services than customary household duties of daily necessity, comfort, or charity, shall be fined. Every apprentice or servant compelled to labor on Sunday shall be deemed a separate offense of the master. The provisions of this act shall not apply to steamboats and other vessels navigating the waters of this state, nor to such manufacturing establishments as are required to be kept in continual operation. No person who from a religious belief keeps any other day than the first day of the week as the Sabbath shall be required to observe the first day of the week, usually called the Christian Sabbath, and shall not be liable to the penalties enacted against Sabbath breaking, provided that no store or saloon shall be kept open or business carried on there on a Christian Sabbath, and provided, further, that no person so observing any other day shall disturb any religious congregation by his avocations or employments. Every person who shall keep open any store or retail any goods, wares, and merchandise on Sunday, shall be subject to a fine. Chap. 48 Sis. 2032 Digest of 1904. California. Every employer who causes his employees or any of them to work more than 6 days in 7, except in the case of emergency, whether the employee is engaged by the day, week, month, or year, and whether the work performed is done in the day or night, is guilty of a misdemeanor. Sec. 653 E. Codes and Statutes 1885 and Chap. 158 Acts of 1901. Colorado. A penalty is imposed upon any person carrying on the business of barbering on Sunday in any city of the first or second class, whether incorporated by general law or special charter. Chap. 73 Acts of 1873. Places where liquors are sold shall be closed from 12 o'clock Saturday night until 6 o'clock Monday morning. Chap. 36 Sec. 1346 I. 18-11-05. Connecticut. Persons are forbidden under penalty of a fine to do any secular business or labor, except works of necessity or charity, or keep open any shop, warehouse, or any manufacturing or mercantile establishment, or expose any property for sale, or engage in any sport, between 12 o'clock Saturday night and 12 o'clock Sunday night. Chap. 89, Sec. 1369, General Statutes of 1902. The statute exempting seventh-day Sabbatarians is discussed below. No railroad company shall run any trains on any road operated by it within this state between sunrise and sunset on Sunday, except from necessity or mercy, provided that trains may be run carrying the United States mail, and such other trains as may be. Sunday laws and the judicial decisions. Authorized by the railroad commissioners on application, as being required for public necessity or for the preservation of freight. No such company shall permit the handling, the loading, or the unloading of freight on any road operated by it between sunrise and sunset on Sunday, except from necessity, provided that this provision is not applicable to the handling, the loading or the unloading of freight by transfer of said freight between steamboats and cars until 8 o'clock in the forenoon, where it is found that the same is required by public necessity. Violations of these provisions are subject to penalty. Chap. 215 Sis. 3,749 to 3,751 General Statutes of 1902. No law affecting travel, business, or labor on Sunday, or the operation on Sunday of any railroad or railway, shall apply to any railroad company or street railway company so as to prohibit or limit the operation on Sunday of electric cars. Chap. 217 Sec. 3,875 General Statutes of 1902. Delaware. A fine is imposed upon any person performing any worldly employment, labor, or business on the Sabbath, excepting works of necessity and charity. A fine is also imposed upon any carrier, peddler, or driver of any public stage or carriage who shall travel or drive with his horse, pack, wagon, stage, or carriage upon the Sabbath, as well as upon any retailer of goods who exposes the same to sell on the Sabbath. It is provided that any justice of the peace may stop any such person, so traveling upon the Sabbath, and detain him until the following day. Chap. 131 Sec. 4. Revised Code of 1873. Any person who carries on or engages in the business of shaving, hair cutting, or other work of a barber, or who opens or allows to be open his barber shop for the purpose of carrying on business on Sunday, shall be deemed guilty of misdemeanor, and shall be subject to a fine or imprisonment. Chap. 264 Acts of 1879. District of Alaska. Any person keeping open a store, shop, grocery, bowling alley, billiard room, or tippling house for the purpose of labor or traffic, or any place of amusement on Sunday, shall be punished by fine, provided that this provision does not apply to the keepers of drug stores, doctors, undertakers, livery stable keepers, barbers, butchers, and bakers, and all circumstances of necessity and mercy may be pleaded in defense, the treatment of such subjects to be determined by the jury. Chap. 420 Title 1, Acts of U.S. Congress, 1888. District of Columbia. A penalty is imposed upon any person performing work or doing any bodily labor on Sunday, and upon any person compelling or allowing servants to do any manner of work or labor on the Lord's day, works of necessity and charity excepted. Chap. 16 Sec. 107 Compiled Statutes. Sunday Laws and the Judicial Decisions. Florida. Whoever follows any pursuit, business, or trade on Sunday, either by manual labor or with animal or mechanical power, except it be work of necessity, shall be punished by fine. Whoever keeps open store or disposes of any wares or merchandise on Sunday, or sells or barters the same, shall be punished by fine. In cases of emergency or necessity, merchants and others may dispose of the necessaries of life to customers or others without keeping open doors. Whoever employs his apprentice or servant in labor or other business on Sunday, except it be ordinary household business of daily necessity or works of charity, shall be punished by fine. Part 5, Title 2, Sis. 2,638 to 2,640, Revised Statutes of 1,871. Nothing contained in the laws of Florida shall be construed so as to prohibit the preparation or printing between the hours of midnight Saturday and 6 in the morning Sunday of any newspaper intended to be circulated and sold on Sunday, or to prohibit the circulation and sale on Sunday of same, or to prohibit the circulation or sale on Sunday of any newspaper theretofore printed. Chage. 5,164, Acts of 1,903. Overdue. If any freight train, excursion train, or any train other than the regular trains run for the carrying of mail or passengers, shall be run on any railroad on the Sabbath, the superintendent of transportation of such railroad company, or the officer having in charge the business of that department of the railroad, shall be liable to indictment in each county through which such train passes, and shall be punished as for a misdemeanor. The following are the exceptions to this provision. A train which has one or more cars loaded with livestock, and which is delayed beyond scheduled time, a freight train running over a road on Saturday night, if the time of its arrival at destination according to schedule be not later than 8 o'clock Sunday morning, special fruit, melon, and vegetable trains, the cars of which contain no other freight except perishable fruits, fish, oysters, fresh meats, etc., and which trains shall be loaded and leave the station from which they start in this state before midnight on the Saturday night previous to the Sunday on which they are operated, to trains on railroads, where the line of said railroad begins and ends in another state, and does not run a distance greater than 30 miles through Georgia. Any person who shall pursue his business or work of ordinary calling on Sunday, works of necessity or charity excepted, shall be guilty of misdemeanor. Penal Code, Div. 10, Sec. 420 and Sec. 422, Code of 1,875. Hawaii. All labor on Sunday is forbidden, excepting works of necessity or charity, except that on Sunday until 9 o'clock in the morning barber shops may be kept open, and fresh meat and fresh. 10 Sunday Laws and the Judicial Decisions. Kansas. Every person who shall either labor himself, or compel his apprentice, servant, or any other person under his charge or control to labor or perform any work other than the household offices of daily necessity, or other works of necessity or charity, on Sunday, shall be subject to a penalty therefor. This provision does not apply to any member of a religious society who observes as the Sabbath any other day than the first day of the week, nor to prohibit ferrymen from crossing passengers on any day in the week. Chap. 31, Sis. 2,341 to 2,345, General Statutes of 1,905. Kentucky. No work shall be done on Sunday except ordinary household duties, or other work of necessity or charity, or work required in the maintenance or operation of a ferry, steamboat, or steam or street railroads. If any person on Sunday shall himself be found at his own or any other trade, or shall employ his apprentices or other persons in labor or other business, whether it be for profit or amusement, unless as stated above, shall be subject to a fine for each offense. Persons who are members of a religious society, and who observe as a Sabbath any other day in the week than Sunday, if they observe as a Sabbath one day in each week, shall not be liable to penalty. Any person who engages in the business of barbering on Sunday shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon conviction shall be fined or imprisoned, or both. Chap. 36, Sis. 1,321, 1,322, and 1,323, Statutes of 1,903. Louisiana. All places of public business, stores, shops, saloons, etc., are required to be closed at 12 o'clock on Saturday night and to remain closed continuously for 24 hours, during which time it shall be unlawful for the proprietors thereof to sell, trade or exchange any article of merchandise kept in any such establishment. Penalty shall be imposed upon the violation of these provisions. Exemption is made in the cases of newsdealers, keepers of soda fountains, places of resort for recreation and health, watering places, and public parks, and the sale of ice. The provisions of this act shall not apply to newspaper offices, printing offices, bookstores, drugstores, apothecary shops, undertakers' shops, dairies, livery stables, railroads, whether steam or horse, hotels, boarding houses, steamboats and other vessels, warehouses for receiving and forwarding freights, restaurants, telegraph offices and theatres, or any place of amusement, provided no intoxicating liquors are sold in the premises. Stores may be open for the purpose of selling anything necessary in sickness and for burial purposes. Revised Laws of 1897. Maine. Any person keeping open his shop, warehouse, or place of business, or anyone who travels, or does any work, labor, o. 12 Sunday Laws and the Judicial Decisions. From secular business and labor on that day, shall not be subject to the penalty prescribed if he disturbs no other person. The Board of Railroad Commissioners may authorize the running on the Lord's Day of such steamboat lines and such trains upon any railroad as, in the opinion of the Board, the public necessity and convenience require, having regard to the due observance of the day. The Board of Railroad Commissioners may, if in their opinion the public interest, convenience, health or welfare so requires, authorize the running of steamboats on the Lord's Day for the entire year or any part thereof, upon such conditions, as they deem judicious to prevent disorderly conduct or the disturbance of public worship, and may at any time revoke such authority. The Lord's Day shall include the time from midnight to midnight. These provisions shall not constitute a defense to an action for a tort or injury suffered by person on the Lord's Day. Chap. 78, Sis. 2, 3, 4, 14 na, 15, 16 na, and 17. Revised Laws with Amendments of 1,902 and 1,904. No intoxicating liquor sold on Sunday except by licensed in holders to guests between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. Chap. 100 Sec. 17 Revised Laws. Michigan. A fine is imposed upon every person keeping open his shop, warehouse, or workhouse, or doing any manner of labor, business or work, except works of necessity and charity, on the first day of the week. A penalty for the performance of secular business or labor on Sunday shall not apply to any person who conscientiously believes that the seventh day of the week ought to be observed as the Sabbath, and who actually refrains from secular business and labor on that day, provided that he disturb no other person. The avocation of barbering is prohibited on Sunday, except when the exercise of such a calling is necessary in relation to a deceased person on said day. It is unlawful for any person or persons to keep open their places of business on Sunday, except those persons who observe the seventh day of the week as the Sabbath. Chap. 154, Sis. 5,912, 5,918, 5,920, 5,921, 5,922, Compelled Laws of 1877. Minnesota. The first day of the week being by general consent set apart for rest and religious uses, the law prohibits the doing on that day of certain acts which are serious interruptions of the repose and religious liberty of the community. The first day of the week includes all the time from midnight to midnight. All labor on Sunday is prohibited, excepting works of necessity or charity, which include whatever is needful to be done during the day for good order, health, or comfort of the 14 na Sunday Laws and the Judicial Decisions. Sponges for the night's work following. Chap. 161, Sec. 1088, Revised Statutes of 1879, 1. Montana. Persons opening barber shops on Sunday for the purpose of conducting the business of hair cutting, shaving, or shampooing are punishable by fine. Penal Code, Cs. 631 and 532, Codes and Statutes of 1895. Nebraska. A fine is imposed upon any person of 14 years of age or over engaged in common labor on Sunday, works of charity and necessity excepted, but this does not apply to persons who conscientiously observe the seventh day of the week, nor to prevent families emigrating from traveling, watermen from landing their passengers, or superintendents or keepers of toll bridges or toll gates from attending and superintending the same, or to ferrymen for conveying travelers over the water, or to persons moving their families on such days. Railroad companies are not prevented under this act from running necessary trains. Criminal Code, 1907, Chap. 23, Sec. 7915, Compiled Statutes. New Hampshire. No person shall do any work, business or labor of his secular calling to the disturbance of others on the Lord's day, except works of necessity or charity, and the making of necessary repairs upon mills and factories which could not be made otherwise without loss to operatives. No person shall keep open his shop, warehouse, cellar, restaurant, or workshop for the reception of company, or shall sell or expose for sale any merchandise on the Lord's day, but this does not prevent the entertainment of boarders, nor the selling of milk, bread, and other necessaries of life, nor drugs and medicines. Penalty is prescribed for the violation of these provisions. No violation of any provision stated shall be sustained unless begun within 30 days after commission of the offense. Chap. 271, Cs. 3, 5, 10, and 13, Public Statutes of 1871. New Jersey. Every person of the age of 14 years or over doing traveling, worldly employment, or business, ordinary or servile labor or work either upon land or water, on Sunday, works of necessity and charity excepted, shall be punishable by fine, except that it is lawful for any railroad company to run one passenger train each way over their roads on Sunday for the accommodation of citizens. The driver or proprietor running any stage through any part of this state on Sunday, except sufficient reason be given to show that the case was one of necessity or mercy, or that the United States mail was being carried to or from any post office, shall be punishable by fine. No goods, merchandise, or cattle shall be carried through the state or offered for sale, or any business transacted therewith on Sunday. R. Sunday laws and the judicial decisions. Livery of uncooked flesh, or meats, fresh or salt, at any hours of the day. Laws of 1901, Chap. 372.1. No I, walo on May NG in the business of barbering on Sunday except in the city of New York, in the village of Saratoga Springs, where barber shops or other places where a barber is engaged in shaving. And like work may be kept open, and the work of a barber carried on until 1:00 of the afternoon. Any violation of the alley of restrictions is punishable by fine. North Carolina. No tradesman, laborer, or other person, 14 years of age or over, shall perform any labor on Sunday, except works of charity and necessity. Chap. 61, Sec. 3782, Code of 1883.1. No railroad company shall permit the loading or unloading of any freight car on Sunday, nor shall permit any train of cars or locomotive to be run on Sunday, except for the purpose of transporting the United States mail and passengers with luggage, and ordinary express freight in an express car exclusively, and except trains run for the purpose of transporting fruit, livestock and perishable freights, providing that Sunday shall be construed to mean twilight portion of the day between sunrise and sunset, trains in transit having started on Saturday May, in order to reach the terminus or shops, run until 10:00 a.m. on Sunday, but not later, nor for any other purpose than to reach the terminus or shops. Penalty attached for violation of the law. Chap. 49, Sec. 1973, amended BY Chap. 72, Acts of 1885 and Chap. 126, Acts of 1887, Code of 1883.1, North Dakota. The acts prohibited on Sunday are servile labor, L. Public sports, trade, manufactures, mechanical employments, public traffic, and serving process. In servile labor only works of necessity or charity are excepted. Any person keeping holy another day of the week rather than the first day is exempt from the provisions of this act. Public selling or exposing for sale any commodities on Sunday is prohibited, except that meats, milk, and fish may be sold before 10 in the morning, that food may be sold to be eaten on the premises where sold, and that drugs and medicines and surgical appliances may be sold at any time during the day. Penalty attached to violation of the statute. Penal Code, Chap. 4, Cs. 68406847, Revised Codes of 1879.1. The business of barbering on Sunday is strictly forbidden, exception being made in preparing the dead for burial. Chap. 30, Sec. Siyam, Acts of 1901. Ohio. A fine is imposed upon any person 14 years of age or over who opens any place of business on Sunday, or engages in labor, or allows anyone under his control to engage in labor on Sunday, except that the labor be works of necessity or charity. 18 Sunday laws and the judicial decisions. Violation of the law is punishable by fine. Cs. 553 tandang bawas 556 Penal Code. Rhode Island. Every person performing any business or work of his ordinary calling on Sunday, or allowing any person under his control to do such work, except works of necessity and charity, shall be fined. Any person belonging to any church or society observing the seventh day of the week as the Sabbath shall be exempt from the provisions of this law, but this exemption does not give him the privilege of opening shops or stores on Sunday for the purpose of trade or merchandise. Chap. 281, Cs. 17 tandang bawas 20, General Laws of 1876. South Carolina. No person 15 years of age or over shall perform any worldly labor, except works of charity or necessity, on Sunday. No person shall expose or sell any goods or merchandise on said day. No person shall direct any other person under his control to work in any machine shop or shops on Sunday, except in cases of emergency. Violation of the law is punishable by fine. Chap. 24, Cs. 500, 501, 503, Code of 1902. Sunday labor on railroads is prohibited to a certain extent. Trains laden with perishable fruit, and mail trains, and such passenger or freight trains as can reach their destination by 6 in the forenoon, are allowed to be operated. Trains are also authorized to be run for the transportation of passengers to and from religious services. A fine is imposed for violation of the act. Chap. 50, Cs. 2121214, Code of 1902. South Dakota. Sunday includes all time from midnight to midnight. Servile labor on Sunday is prohibited, except works of necessity or charity. When another day of the week is uniformly kept holy, and persons do not labor upon that day, they shall not be obliged to keep holy the first day of the week. All trades, manufactures, and mechanical employments are prohibited. Penalty is imposed for violation of the act. Penal Code, Cs. 41 tandang bawas 49, Revised Codes of 1903. Tennessee. Any person performing the common avocations of life, or permitting anyone under his control to perform such duties, on Sunday, except works of necessity or charity, shall be punished by fine. Sec. 3020, Code of 1876. The business of barbering on Sunday is strictly forbidden and is punishable by fine. Sec. 330, Code of 1876, Chap. 114 na, Acts of 1871. Texas. A fine is imposed upon any person laboring or compelling others to labor on Sunday. The following are exemptions of the Act: household duties, works of necessity or charity, works on farms or plantations to prevent loss of crops, running of steamboats, rail cars, wagon trains, common carriers, the delivery of goods by them, receiving of said goods by parties to whom the Sunday laws and the judicial decisions. 21. Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Georgia, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, Mia, and Wisconsin. 36, Alaska, Hawaii, and New I, and the District of Columbia. Sports and amusements are expressly prohibited in Connecticut, Kentucky, Massachusetts, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Oregon, 6, and Alaska. States, North Dakota and Oklahoma, do not allow the S of process on Sunday. In New York, state writs may ved on Sunday. Code of Civil Procedure, 2015. Pilik Traft C, unless of an emergent nature or in relation. United States mails, is forbidden on Sunday in Concord, Delaware, Georgia, Illinois, Maine, New Jersey, Carolina, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Virginia, 11, and Puerto Rico. 7. The carrying on of Sunday trade and business, in one form another or generally, save in medicinal and sumptuary or isles, is prohibited in Alabama, Arkansas, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Washington, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. 37, Alaska, Puerto Rico, 2, and the District of Columbia. Manufactures and mechanical employments are generally interdicted on Sunday in Connecticut, Florida, Minnesota, Missouri, New York, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, Isasero, Puerto Rico, and under the federal law. Sunday laws and the judicial decisions. 21. Lina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. 36, Alaska, Hawaii, and New Mexico. 3, and the District of Columbia. Public sports and amusements are expressly prohibited on Sunday in Connecticut, Kentucky, Massachusetts, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Oregon, 6, and Alaska. 2 states, North Dakota and Oklahoma, do not allow the services of process on Sunday. In New York, state writs may be served on Sunday. Code of Civil Procedure, 2015. Public traffic, unless of an emergent nature or in relation to the United States mails, is forbidden on Sunday in Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, Illinois, Maine, New Jersey, North Carolina, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Virginia, 11, and Puerto Rico. The carrying on of Sunday trade and business, in one form or another or generally, save in medicinal and sumptuary articles, is prohibited in Alabama, Arkansas, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Washington, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. 37, Alaska, Puerto Rico, 2, and the District of Columbia. Manufactures and mechanical employments are generally interdicted on Sunday in Connecticut, Florida, Minnesota, Missouri, New York, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, 1-0 Puerto Rico, and under the federal law. 24 Sunday laws and the judicial decisions. Open or business carried on therein on the Christian Sabbath, and provided further that no person so observing any other day shall disturb any religious congregation by his avocations or employments. The Connecticut Statute of Exemption, 1907, referred to more particularly below, permits both trade and labor to be carried on and performed by Seventh-day Sabbatarians on Sunday. There is no federal Sunday law, although Thai distillation of spirituous liquors on the first day of the week is prohibited. California has had no Sunday law on the statute book since 1883, unless the recent Act, 1901, to prohibit labor by any employee on more than 6 days out of every 7 may be so construed. In Colorado only trafficking in liquors and barbering are prohibited on Sunday, 1886, and in Montana the statute, 1875, applies merely to barbering. Leading cases. Alabama has no statute exempting observant Jews from the operation of the Sunday law, 1874, but a manufacturer whose establishment is required to be kept running constantly is permitted to labor on Sunday. An important case in this jurisdiction is that of Frolickstein, the reasoning of which has often been adopted by other courts. There the appellant had been convicted of the violation of an ordinance of the city of Mobile by having sold shoes on Sunday. He contended that, as an Orthodox Jew who performed no labor of any kind on the Jewish Sabbath, he should be exempted from the penalty of the ordinance, s. Laws of 1887, ch. 2, 1. Acts of 1901, ch. 158. Code of 1897, ch. 175, 5542. Frolickstein the Mayor of Mobile, 40 Alabama, 725, 1867. 26 Sunday laws and the judicial decisions. Observance of his own Sabbath. In declaring the statute under which Newman was punished unconstitutional, the court gave it as their opinion that the law was passed as the result of an intention to enforce, as a religious institution, the observance of a day held sacred by the followers of one faith, and entirely disregarded by all the other denominations within the state. Justice Stephen J. Field dissented from this decision, maintaining that the act was constitutional as a valid exercise of the civil authority or police power. In a later case, his views were adopted. Both cases have now only an historic interest by reason of the adoption of the Act of 1901 already referred to. Connecticut. Connecticut has recently, 1907, enacted a law which amply exempts observant Seventh-day Sabbatarians from the operation of the Act against labor on Sunday, 1773. It reads thus: no person who conscientiously believes that the seventh day of the week ought to be observed as the Sabbath, and actually refrains from secular business and labor on that day, or who conscientiously believes that the Sabbath begins at sundown on Friday night and ends at sundown on Saturday night, and actually refrains from secular business and labor during said period, and who has filed written notice of such belief with the prosecuting attorney of the court having jurisdiction, shall be liable to prosecution for performing secular business and labor on Sunday, provided he disturbs no other person who is attending public worship. Ibid. P. 505. Ex parte Andrews, 18 California, 680, 1861. And C. Ex parte Westerfield, 55 California, 550, 1880. Ex parte Coser, 60 Ibid. 177, 1882, ex parte Gents, 112 Ibid, 471, 1876. Public Acts of 1907, ch. 180, 1. For the earlier laws, see General Statutes of 1900, ch. 80, 1360, 1372. But a Fitchville farmer, who attempted to employ a Turkish laborer to work on Sunday for him, was fined as $27. See Norwich Bulletin, may 23, 1908. 28 Sunday laws and the judicial decisions. Religious belief, or impose upon him any religious duty incompatible with the free exercise of the dictates of conscience, but to prescribe a rule of civil duty for all persons within the jurisdiction of the state upon the Sabbath day. In the states and the District of Columbia, the legislatures and Congress have enacted laws in place of these colonial statutes that define the civil duties of the citizen in the observance of one day in 7, Sunday. As a day of rest, it is defined as a duty the citizen owes to society in promoting the health, morals, and general welfare of the people. The duty of observing the Sabbath day as a religious obligation is left with the individual and is a matter beyond the pale of legislative interference. Illinois. In Illinois, the Eden case holds that a statute prohibiting barbering on Sunday cannot be justified as an exercise of the police power of the state on the ground that it is class legislation, 1845. Indiana. The Indiana Statute Against Sunday Labor, 1855, 1881, specially exempts Jews from its provisions. Indeed, in an important case before the Supreme Court of this state, it was strongly intimated that a Sunday statute which did not exempt Seventh-day Sabbatarians from its operation would be looked upon as unconstitutional and invalid. 4. The Franiera meant to leave it to the conscientious judgments of the Coltigians to choose between the first and seventh day of the week. It was not the purpose of tea makers to compel any class of conscientious persons to from labor upon 2 days in every week. Law of Kansas and Kentucky, the Exeju, 1858, is similar to that of Indiana, have arisen under the Tatulos of Kansas. 26 Washington Law Reporter, pp. 103, v. Eden v. People, 161 Illinois, 20 i. 1 Annotated Statutes of 1874 Revision of 11 ay katumbas equals Johns v. State, 78 Indiana, 332, 1881, ib-1 d. Code of 177, 5,040, C. Sere v. Win, 1870. Sunday Laws and the Judicial Decisions, 20. Louisiana, in Shreveport, Louisiana, a local ordinance, 1873, was passed which permitted Jews to engage in business on Sunday. Considering its constitutionality, the Supreme Court made use of the following words. Before the Constitution, Jews and Gentiles are equal. By the law they must be treated alike, and the ordinance of a city council which gives to one sect privilege which it denies to another, violates both the Constitution and the law, and is therefore null and void. Maine. No cases of importance have been reported which construe the Sunday laws of Maine. Maryland. In an early case, in Maryland, whereas we have seen the statute upon this subject has remained practically unaltered since 1723, the court held. The Sabbath is emphatically the day of rest, and the day of rest here is the Lord's Day, or Christian Sunday. Ours is a Christian community. And so, in a much more recent decision involving a Seventh-day Baptist, it is stated. It is undoubtedly true that rest from secular employment on Sunday does have a tendency to foster and encourage the Christian religion, but by the Constitution the Seventh-day Sabbatarian has the right to observe his own Sabbath. But it would. City of Shreveport v. Levy, 26 Louisiana Annual, 671, 1874. The Sunday Statute of the state dates from 1886. Ibid. p. 672. NC Corporation of Minden v. Silverstein, 36 Louisiana Annual, 912, 1884. State ex Rail Walker and Mers v. Orleans Judge, 39 ibid, 132, 1888. In the last cited case, the court held a Sunday closing law valid because it did not deny equal privileges or immunities to a particular class, nor the rights to life, liberty, property, and due process of law. Kilgore v. Miles, 6 Gill and Johnson, 268, 1834. Ibid, p. 274. So in the original report, Jude find the state, 78 Maryland, 510, at pages 515 and 516 na, 1874. Sunday laws and the judicial decisions, 31. In a case determined in 1877, a merchant was tried and convicted for having kept his shop open on Sunday. The court observed, keeping open a shop is in itself a solicitation to do business, and thus an invitation to commit acts, which the legislature has treated as violations of the day. While those who, for conscientious reasons, observe the seventh day of the week as the Sabbath, may do business or perform labor which does not interfere with others, they are not entitled by keeping open their shops to invite the violation of the provisions of the Act, even if their ordinary business is shopkeeping. The law prohibiting labor on Sunday is tantamount to a police regulation for the general welfare. Michigan, both the law and the decisions thereunder governing labor on Sunday are reasonable in tone in Michigan. Besides the usual statute of exemption, which is practically the one prevailing in New York, there are laws permitting Seventh-day Sabbatarians to do servile labor on Sunday, if this does not disturb persons attending places of worship, and to keep open their places of business on that day. Commonwealth v. Has, 122 ibid, 40, 1877. Ibid, p. 41. Si Commonwealth v. Marzinski, 149 ibid, 68, 1886, same v. Dextra, ibid, 28, 1886. Commonwealth v. Star, 144 ibid, 350, 1827, holds that an observant Jew will not be permitted to keep his meat shop open on Sunday. Here the defendant opened his shop only to his own customers, all of whom were Jews. The court declared, however, that there were no degrees of opening a shop, and it must be kept closed absolutely on Sunday. In the case of Commonwealth v. Alexander, 185, ibid, 551, 1904, the exception in the statute relating to entertainments for charity on Sunday clearly applied. Commonwealth v. Kirshen, 80 Northeastern, 2, 1907, reaffirmed the decision in the Star case. On Sunday a Jew may not labor, he disturbs those at worship on that day. Compiled Laws of 1877, ch. 154, 5,912, 5,918, 5,920, 5,922. The last provision is expressly negative by the statutes in force in Arkansas, New Jersey, and Rhode Island. The case of the People v. Michael Bellet, 79 Michigan, 151, 1874, contains the interesting statement that, if a statute against barbering on Sunday specially exempts Seventh-day Sabbatarians from its operation, it is not unconstitutional as a piece of class legislation. Sunday laws and the judicial decisions, 33. Nebraska. In Nebraska, a conscientious Seventh-day Sabbatarian may perform common labor on Sunday. An important case in this state disclosed the fact that the accused kept his place of business open on Saturday as well as Sunday of his plea for exemption, the court remarked. The ordinance provides that its provisions shall not extend to those who conscientiously observe the seventh day of the week as the Sabbath, and, therefore, as plaintiff does not observe that day as a Sabbath, he is not within its provision. New Jersey, while Seventh-day Sabbatarians are exempt from the compulsory observance of Sunday in New Jersey, 1,866, the work or labor they do on that day must be performed within their workshops or dwelling houses. New York. In New York, especially in New York City, with its large Jewish population, the rigid enforcement of the law prohibiting general labor on Sunday, 1,860, is bound to work much hardship. Yet, the Court of Appeals has held that the Christian Sabbath is one of the civil institutions of the state, and that the legislature, for the purpose of promoting the moral and physical well-being of the people, and the peace, quiet, and good order of society, has authority to regulate its observance and prevent its desecration by any appropriate legislation is unquestioned. In the anonymous case the statement is made, is it not obvious that by reason of keeping a store open for business on Sunday temptation is presented to those who have? Criminal Code, 1907, ch. 23,241. Lieberman D. State, 26 Nebraska, 464, 1,880. Ibid, p. 460. General Statutes of 1,876 v. I. 33-34. People v. Moses, 140 New York, 214 at p. 215, 1,873. A. Statute, Laws of 1,901, ch. 372, absolutely forbidding the sale of raw meat in cities on Sunday was obviously enacted in the labor interest. Reported in 12 abots new cases, 455, 188. Sunday laws and the judicial decisions, 35. Of the synagogue as illegal because they conflict with the rights of Christianity. These remarks apply to Seventh-day Baptists, whose adherence to that day as the Sabbath has been recognized and protected by statute. IV. It may be that police laws can be passed regulating, perhaps entirely prohibiting, theatrical performances on any day of the week, but such law, to be operative, must not give directly or indirectly any such preference, as is above stated. The effect of such a statute on the Jewish lessee of a theater, who conscientiously regarded his own Sabbath, would be to deprive him of the enjoyment of his property for 2 days of the week, the Christian being only so deprived on one. Such a distinction is both unconstitutional and unjust. But Justice Allen, writing for the court, was of a different opinion. The constitutionality of the law under which Lindenmuller was indicted and convicted does not depend upon the question whether or not Christianity is a part of the common law of this state. Were that the only question involved, it would not be difficult to show that it was so, in a qualified sense, not to the extent that would authorize a compulsory conformity in faith and practice, to the creed and formula of worship of any sect or denomination, or even in those matters of doctrine and worship common to all denominations styling themselves Christian, but to the extent that entitled the Christian religion and its ordinances to respect and protection, as the acknowledged religion of the people. Individual consensus may not be enforced, but men of every opinion and creed may be restrained from acts which interfere with Christian worship, and which tend to revile religion and bring it into contempt. The belief of no man can be constrained, and the proper expression of religious belief is guaranteed to all, but this right, like every other right, must be exercised with strict regard to the equal rights of others, and when religious belief or unbelief leads to acts which interfere with the religious worship and rights of conscience of those who represent the religion of the country, as established, not by law, but by the consent and usage of the community, and existing before the organization of the government, their acts may be restrained by legislation, even if they are not indictable at common law. Christianity is not the legal religion of the state, as established by law. If it were, it would be a civil or political. Ibid, pp. 558, 559. Sunday laws and the judicial decisions, 37. Service of seal process and protected in the exercise of their religion on their Sabbath. In an early case it was held that an award of arbitration made on Sunday but not published or declared until the next day, was lawful and proper. Yet a corporation, even if organized for religious, not secular, objects, may not hold its annual meeting on Sunday. North Carolina. The statute, 1741, in North Carolina does not exempt observant Seventh-day Sabbatarians from its operation. An early case contains, however, several interesting statements. The court said, "The truth is, that it a Sunday liberal offends us, not so much because it disturbs us in practicing for ourselves the religious duties, or enjoying the salutary repose or recreation of that day, as that it is, in itself, a breach of God's law, and a violation of the party's own religious duty. But we do not perceive how it can become an offense, at common law even when the labor is both openly and publicly performed, as in a town, for example, except upon a process of reasoning of this kind, that the Christian religion is a part of the common law, that it forbids work on Sunday, not only as a sin in itself, but as a disturbance to others and an injury to the state, and therefore that the law prohibits such profanation and punishes it, but we cannot believe that such a principle was established at the common law. Although it may be true that the Christian religion is a part of the common law, it is not so in the sense that an act contrary to the precepts of our Savior or of Christian morals is necessarily indictable." Ibid, pp. 569, 570. The reasoning of this opinion was expressly approved by the Court of Appeals in Neuendorf v. Duryea, 69, New York, 557, at p. 561, 1877. And C. People v. Havnor, 149, New York, 175, 1876, Moore v. Owen, 100, New York Supplement, 585, at p. 580, 1908. Isaacs v. The Bethlehem Society, Isa Hilton, 400, at 60, 1857. This was a decision by Judge Chas. P. Daly. It was followed in Berlich v. Pike, 53 Miscellaneous, 328, at p. 333, 1907, biwo Justice David Leventrit. In re Agudat Hakehiloth, 18 Miscellaneous, 717, 1876. State v. Williams, 4 Aredel, 400, 1844. Ibid, pp. 403, 404. Sunday Laws and the Judicial Decisions, 30. And in an earlier ease, to which reference has been made, Judge Thurman held as follows. Of course, it is no objection, but on the contrary, is a high recommendation, to a legislative enactment based upon justice or public policy, that it is found to coincide with the precepts of a pure religion, but the fact is nevertheless true, that the power to make the law rests in the legislative control over things temporal, and not over things spiritual. Thus the statute upon which the defendant relies, prohibiting common labor on the Sabbath, could not stand for a moment as a law of this state, if its sole foundation was the Christian duty of keeping that day holy, and its sole motive to enforce the observance of that duty. For no power over things merely spiritual has ever been delegated to the government, while any preference of one religion over another, as the statute would give upon the above hypothesis, is directly prohibited by the Constitution. But the General Assembly of Osho is not, as we have shown, a guardian of the sanctity of any day. If it may protect the first day of the week from desecration because it is the Christian Sabbath, it may, in like manner, protect the sixth day because it is the holy day of the Mahometan, and the seventh day because it is the Sabbath of the Jew and Seventh-day Baptist. Oklahoma has no cases of interest to us upon the subject. Pennsylvania. The law prohibiting general labor on Sunday, 1774, is very rigid in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Jews are not excepted from it. An early case, dating from 1816, is authority for the proposition that a conscientious Jew can neither perform worldly labor on Sunday nor claim exemption from the operation of a statute which prohibits it, on the score of his faith. Bloom v. Richards, 2 Ohio State, 387, 1,853. Ibid, pp. 371, 372. Commonwealth v. Wolf, 3 Sergeant and Roll, 48, 1,816. And a charitable society may not conduct a secular trial of a member on Sunday. Society v. Commonwealth, 52 Pennsylvania State, 125, 1,866. See Commonwealth v. Beck, 22 Pittsburgh Legal Journal, NS, 310, 1,872. Sunday Laws and the Judicial Decisions, 41. A loosely reasoned ease in Tennessee, affecting a Seventh-day Baptist, holds in effect that a general statute against labor on Sunday extended to those persons who conscientiously observed Saturday as the Christian Sabbath. Texas. Seventh-day Sabbatarians are expressly excepted from the operation of the Sunday law in force in Texas, where a case holds that Sunday laws are valid and do not violate the constitutional rights of Jews under the Bill of Rights in the state constitution, whereby equal rights and freedom of worship are guaranteed to all. Virginia and West Virginia. In Virginia, and also in West Virginia, 1,882, Seventh-day Sabbatarians are expressly excepted from the operation of the Sunday Statute, 1,877, but only household labor and works of necessity or charity are really included in this exemption, and a Seventh-day Sabbatarian may not compel an apprentice or servant not of his belief to do secular work or business on Sunday. Wisconsin has a statute exempting Seventh-day Sabbatarians from the operation of its Sunday law, but no case of interest to us has been decided under it by the courts. In conclusion, the reader's attention is directed to what the late Judge Thomas M. Cooley, of Michigan, in his great work, Parker v. State, 16,476, at p. 480, 1,886. For Utah C. State v. Suffer, 60 lawyers reports annotated, 468 S. C. 25 utak, 318, 1,903. Penal Code, 1,901, Art 177. Ex parte Sundstrom, 25 Texas Appeals, Criminal, 133, 1,888. Code of 1,904, Sich. 185, 37, 380. See the Occident v. I. P. 417, Ibid, v. IV, P. 277 et sec. P. 615, Ex parte Marks, 86 Virginia, 40, 1,880. Sunday Laws and the Judicial Decisions. Unconstitutional limitations has said of the American Sunday laws. But the Jew who is forced to respect the first day of the week, when his conscience requires of him the observance of the seventh also, may plausibly urge that the law discriminates against his religion, and by forcing him to keep a second Sabbath in each week, unjustly, though by indirection, punishes him for his belief. 7th edition, B.Y. Victor H. Lane, Boston, 1903. Ibid, p. 675. Note. Idaho, the Act of 1907 prohibits horse racing, and the keeping open of saloons, and places of business, and amusement on Sunday. Laws of 1907, p. 223, C. State v. Dolan, 13 Idaho, 673, 14 L. R. A. N. S. 1250.